Hello and welcome to this video. So imagine that you've grown up without many resources. You're kind of in that bottom rung financially speaking. So if I'm speaking to you out there and you're one of those, what we're going to talk about in this video is, are you really less prepared for college than somebody with money? We will talk about that in this video. All right, so we're going to have a conversation about poor people. Are they prepared for college? Well, the financial implications of that, we need to discuss that point. That influence, that financial aspect on the K to 12 opportunities in the education, that's another area we need to talk about. The culture within the community and such. Is there any models of going to college? Is there any history of that? That's going to play a role. We need to address that. Your mindset, the emotional aspect, and the beliefs that you have about whether it's even possible. And I'm going to want to talk about solutions to this as well from an individual basis, not just from a societal basis. Because if you are growing up poor, how are you going to get into college? Besides the cost of attending college and that obvious financial barriers go a lot deeper than that, because if you are poor, there's actually lots of opportunity for you to get aid if you show you are prepared in other ways for college. And that's really where this gap comes in. Only 11% of people within 6 years of graduating high school, of poor people, earn their bachelor's degree. That's over 50% for upper income individuals. That's a big gap. But we also see, though, is that low income people score 200 points lower on SATs than upper income people. That doesn't speak to the cost of college being a detriment. That speaks in large part to the preparedness. So systemically, K to 12 education, if you are growing up poor, you may well be growing up in a poor community, whether it's an inner city neighborhood or whether it's rural. And the school systems may not have all the opportunities available to you to push and challenge yourself. It's quite possible that the cultural component of this neighborhood that you live in, the community that you live in, college hasn't really been thought highly of. The money isn't there to offer things like AP courses and other aspects that may push you. There's a whole lot of belief systems that put caps on what's possible. There's an undercurrent, again, culturally speaking, of like, why go to college? And all of these barriers will play a role into that, why only 11% of the people, poorer people, lower income people, actually go on to get their degree. Those barriers speak a lot more to things associated with like mindset than it does the actual money available. The perfect kind of understanding here is if you look at some of the really poor, and when I mean poor, I'm talking about underfunded schools. Some private Catholic schools, they don't pay their teachers well. They they aren't these, they aren't necessarily targeting the high income. It's not those level Catholic schools. They don't have a lot of resources available to them, but yet their students have done historically exceptionally well. There's a number of examples over and over where in poor schools or poor districts, some schools have done exceptionally well. So if it's not money, what is it? And that's what we really need to be looking at and focus on. That's going to come a lot more into our mindset. So kind of, talk a little bit more depth about this cultural aspect. there are some poorer communities that really shun this whole notion of going to college. I think you're better than I am. The college boys, and there's an undercurrent throughout the community where college isn't looked highly at. And then there are others that they come in and realize that your way up is through education. And this has been especially true of like immigrant groups who come here and who are poorer, and they, form little neighborhood groups, communities, but they value on education. They're gonna, mom or dad working 2 jobs to make sure we're gonna get my child to college. They're gonna be the ones who go to college. That cultural difference is significant in the performance. And again, it's mindset, it's beliefs, it's the understanding, it's the example. All of those things are going to play a role into whether you become one of those 11% who go on and get your college degree, or whether you try it but drop out. You become overwhelmed by the financial concerns, what have you. All of those things can end up, playing around in your emotional ability, your mindset, the stress associated with trying to get in and maintain it and keep working hard. And maybe you're working through college, right? You're trying to work full time and go to college because you got to pay for it. Those can be significant obstacles that are going to relate it right back to your mindset. I got 2 different stories to kind of tie all this up. One is my wife, who grew up poor. Her 3 older siblings were a lot older than her, so she essentially kind of grew up by herself in the household. Uh, Both her parents were working poor, right? They weren't educated, college educated themselves. They were both deaf, which totally kind of changed some of the cultural aspects. But my wife knew she was going to go to college. She got into a very good college, but because she was concerned about not being able to afford it, she ended up going to a local university. And all she wanted to do was become a teacher. She wanted to go back and teach at her alma mater, the high school that she had graduated from. And that's exactly what she did. It took her about a little over 5 years to kind of finally get that degree, and she had to work through it and all of those things. But she was able to do that. Another very good friend of mine who grew up high school, he was a fraternity brother of mine in college. Uh, his parents were shoe mill workers. Mom didn't even have a high school education, but she valued education, and she wanted her children to get that college education. And he was the oldest of 4 kids, and he went on and he went and got a college education, and he's an entrepreneur. He's a business owner. He's lived in the community he grew up in, and he's run a small business pretty much since he bought the company that he went to work for after college. And he had worked part-time with this company. It was a silk screening, embroidery design company. And he did that. He's been done that ever since he got out of college and after he bought the company from the people who owned it when he went to work for them. Both of these examples are people who grew up poor, working class poor, didn't really have much money, but they're able to get it done and get that college education. And mostly because their mindset, they had support around them that were encouraging them, helping them, pushing them along, saying it's possible. When that's present, you can get it done. All right, we just wrapped up another video, and quite frankly, I think it's a very important video as we talk about our, poor people prepared for college, and whether they are or not, in large part, depends on the support they get at home and within their inner circle. So please take that message out of that. Of course, I encourage you to subscribe to our channel, and you might be interested in the video that we have, our online schools preparing people for college. So you check that video out today, and I will see you in the next one.